Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Flying Cat Marketing interview series. Today I have Foti, the founder at GrowthMentor, and we're going to be talking about key lessons on bootstrapping and growth hacking. And first of all, hello, and
Hello.
how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on your show.
Yeah, thanks for joining. I've been an avid user of GrowthMentor for a while. And I'm really excited to have you on here because I think that you have a lot of value to provide our listeners today. So talking about bootstrapping, you are bootstrapping. First of all, sorry, I'm a little all over the place today. Tell everybody what GrowthMentor is.
So GrowthMentor is I don't know sometimes whether to call it a marketplace because it's not really a marketplace or a platform. I'll just stick with platform. But it's a platform where you can book one-on-one calls with vetted growth marketing and product and startup mentors and just have a chat, talk about what you're stuck on, get some third-party perspectives, and just get some on-demand mentorship from people that have a bit more experience than you on certain things that you're struggling with.
Yeah, it's super useful. You just pay a monthly fee and then you can talk to people unlimited. Meanwhile, consultants are charging like thousands of dollars a month, people with the same skill set. So it's very useful. So you're bootstrapping GrowthMentor.
Yes, I self-funded the builds in the beginning, pushed all my chips on red in a sense, put all my savings into it, and it worked out at the end. But yeah, so that was a super oversimplification. There was a lot of work, but we resisted the temptations to raise funding, although we did have quite a few opportunities to do. And I think that was the right decision.
What was it that you have against raising funds?
I don't have anything against raising funds. I have something against obsessing over raising funds prematurely. And the only reason I even have that notion is because I do a lot of calls on GrowthMentor and I talk to hundreds of founders. And it's just a really common theme. Oh, we're thinking about raising funding, almost like in this entitled tone, like they have the choice to raise funding, but they're just like choosing not to. And that's like, you don't really need to right now. Why should you put this effort? You don't really have a business yet. So what about we just focus a little bit on creating value for whoever it is our ideal customer persona is, solving an actual real world problem. And then when we need funding, then we can entertain these ideas. But I think funding is great if you have not necessarily product market fit, but you have traction for sure. And you hit this point where it's, oh shit, if I can't do this next thing, which will help accelerate our ability to solve XYZ problem until I get a cash influx of let's say 100 grand or whatever. But that's many times you don't really need funding. And you hear a lot of these highlights. If you're on LinkedIn at all, every day you'll be scrolling down. You ever notice those like XYZ startup raised $1 trillion, like their Series D rounder. And it's like these huge sums, and then like you see it and you're like, what about me? Shall I do it? Yeah,
it's a lot of responsibility, though, to be honest. I would be frightened to have that much money to work with. But how difficult is it to raise funds in reality? Are founder expectations realistic?
I talked to quite a few VCs, and they're looking for like 100x growth potential because when they invest, they know that there's a really large chance that your startups just go under. It's just statistics. It's nothing personal. So like they're not interested in a 5x or even a 10x like growth potential. They're looking for 100x. So it's really difficult to convince somebody of that if you don't have a tremendous growth rate already. So from the VC perspective, it's pretty hard, right? From an angel perspective, I think it's definitely easier. But at the same time, you have to ask yourself, would you invest in your business? Just really be honest. And then even beyond, but lower than that in the tier of funding, there's the friends and family rounds, which a lot of startups do, which is great. But then the question there is, if I lose their money, will I tarnish those relationships? And how much are those relationships worth? Is it worth this risk you're taking? So I just see a lot of risk in trying to raise funding, a lot of distraction from building your product in the early stage when you should be focused on building a brand, building some defensibility into your product. And at the end of the day, there is, as you mentioned earlier, like so much overhead in managing all these people. Like somebody invests, you're going to have to spend that money. And usually the first thing you do is you hire a bunch of people, right? So on that merry note, do you really need that many people anyway? I'm of the sense of the opinion that like these huge teams are overrated. It's like you don't really need that many people to do a pretty good startup.
That's actually an issue that I'm facing. Obviously, my team is not huge, but do you really not need a lot of people? Because people get really stressed and burnt out when you're in a startup. There's just so much stuff going on and it's so intense. How do you do it without burning out your team?
I mean, it depends. Your situation is a bit different, I think, because you have an agency. So your product really is like human capital. How can you scale that to deliver value for your clients? But like for a SaaS business, for example, like you could get away with a pretty lean team. Like for example, GrowthMentor, up until a month ago, like me and Jessica were the only two people besides our three developers that were full-time. We just made our first full-time hire and we're 3.5 years in, right? So if you need to upskill yourself, if you want to be super lean, right? So you have to wear many hats. There's no like silver bullets around it. Basically, you have to work your ass off. So you have to do the work of 3-4 different people to a certain degree, which I think it's doable because in startups, you don't necessarily need a full-time person for every role in the beginning. There's not enough work for that. Like for example, I don't have a PPC person. I do PPC myself because I don't have enough work to hire somebody full-time on PPC. So that's just one of the things that I elected to just upskill myself on. And then there's other things like email copywriting, for example. Jessica, she got really good at that and now she handles that. So product analytics, segment, all that, how to create dashboards. Like I taught myself that and I'm doing that. So I don't have to hire that person anymore. So there's all these different roles that a lot of startups hire for. But if you can get really good at upskilling yourself, but you don't necessarily have to hire them full. And if you do want to hire, you can just do freelancers. There's so many good ones and it's not that expensive if you just get like a part-timer and do like maybe a 10-hour a month contract, right? 10 hours a month. If you get someone really good, you're paying $100 an hour, it's $1,000 a month, right? That's how much I pay I have a data scientist that basically takes the data that we collect on Mixpanel, analyzes it for us and gives me some nice feedback every week, right? So somebody else in our position would have raised $1 trillion and hired 5 product managers and all that. Like, I'm like, all right, we don't need that. We'll just one person, 10 hours a month, that's enough.
Yeah.
I've interviewed a couple of people for that role and she was the best and it's working out fine. So that you can just copy, paste, rinse and repeat for different roles.
Did you upskill yourself in order to be able to hire this role properly?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, I felt like I had to. If you don't know the basics, like how are you gonna manage somebody?
Yeah. And how do you know when it's a good idea to upskill yourself on something versus delegating it or hiring somebody?
Yeah, it's tough. You just have to try things. It'll hurt in the beginning if you're trying to do something that goes really out of your comfort zone. You just have to, there's no silver bullet for this. Like I just use my gut and I just kind of know do I have the potential to be really good at this. I know that at copy, so I could theoretically do PPC because a big component of that is the ad messaging and so on. So what else is missing from that equation? Great. It's setting up, knowing how to do targeting, knowing how to be really strategic about your custom audiences and what you're tracking with your pixel. And so those are things that you could jump on a call with a GrowthMentor consultant or someone else who knows their shit and fill in the gaps in your knowledge. But you have to have some sort of strength that plays into that. So yeah.
And so how do you deal with the overwhelm? Because the way that I'm always like, oh, we're all overwhelmed, we got to hire somebody else. I guess there's probably tricks of like finding ways to automate more things that you're doing and analyzing how you spend your time. But how do you deal with wishing you could hire more people?
I'll just be 100% with you right now, right? Straight honest. I never have gotten over that. Every single day I feel like, oh my God, I wish I could hire somebody. I need this role, I need that role. Like it'll never end, I think. At least unless you raise a lot of capital. Well, if you're bootstrapped, I think you're always gonna have that desire to just bring more awesome, smart people just to take things off. But one way that I deal with that is just by really be trying to prioritize things in a kind of systemic way. So I just have a very simple Google sheet. with my growth activities that I have planned in my backlog for the next quarter. Got them all ranked by confidence, by impact. And then I break down each activity into cost component wise based on how many hours I expect other freelancers to how much time I need from them to do certain things. And that way I can rank things, right? It's that, and there's a lot of pressure out there to just do all different channels. So if you just narrow your focus down a couple of things, like for me, that one of those things is SEO, right? That's a channel that I know is working for us. It's driving 60% of all of our signups. So I'm focusing on that. I'm just doing PPC just because it's like a hobby for me. Like I'm losing money on that. I really want to crack it at some point, but it's not something that I'm prioritizing because I know it's not working. So I would suggest to prioritize and get rid of that overwhelm, find out what's contributing to bottom of funnel conversions.
Yeah.
And then work on that first and then move up funnel after you've really nailed the super bottom of the funnel. In the case of most businesses, that's going to be your pricing page, your sign up page. So CRO over there. Did you really nail that? Great. All right, let's move up a little bit. What's the previous step that somebody was on right before they hit your sign up page? Maybe it was a very high traffic blog post that's bottom of funnel intent. Let's analyze that. Maybe we can put some call to action somewhere higher. So that's bottom of funnel first approach. If you're overwhelmed, just focus on that. Create 3 action items that you can work on immediately. If you don't know what to work on next, slam those out of the way and then move on to the next thing.
So did SEO become one of your biggest channels because you were already really good at SEO, or did you experiment with other channels? Because it seems like not always the channel to get started with when you're launching something.
I got started with it immediately.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was because you already are good at SEO.
Yeah, I was good at SEO at the previous company I drove growth at. So that I just think it's like the best channel because it's the gift that it's the it just keeps on working for you afterwards.
Keeps on giving.
Right? What do you call it? The gift though.
The gift that keeps on giving?
I don't know. Keeps on giving? Yeah. Brain freeze right there. Yeah, I think it's really important to get started on that. If you think that your startup is like, if you're in it for the long run, don't listen to what the other pundits say that, SEO takes 8 months and 10, do PPC first. That's not true. It works really fast if you do it strategically. And I read one of your recent blog posts about your bottom of funnel content that you were creating. And I totally agree. Like that, you just need to be super specific on that. But before you even get into I'd love to talk a little about this. This is my favorite topic.
Let's do it.
So what do you think about jobs to be done in companion with?
Tell me a little bit more what you mean by that. I guess
there's a jobs to be done framework is a framework for using that you can use for customer development. It's, in my opinion, the best alternative to your classic sort of buyer personas where it's, Tom is 30 to 34 years old.
Yeah.
So jobs to be done really dives into the motivations behind why people are buying services or products. Like what's the outcome that they want? You don't want a 1/4 inch drill, you want a 1/4 inch hole in the wall kind of thing. Do your customer development first, interview your users, find out really what it is that they want to do with by using your software and how, or your, whatever, it doesn't have to be software, and like what alternatives they've attempted to solve that problem with prior to you, what inertias were holding them back. Like this sort of customer development needs to happen before you do any marketing, in my opinion, right? Whether that's SEO or PPC or anything. And I think a lot of people skip that.
A lot of people go straight to Ahrefs before they even do that. And then I'm like, how do you know that any of those keywords are related to your customer? How do you know that it's answering any questions that they really have? Because
my competitor, I put them in Ahrefs, I did look at top pages and I saw that they had those keywords. Yeah, but how do you know those are driving conversions for them?
Yeah, you can't even see that. No, I totally agree with you, Foti. That's actually part of our processes as well, is we do a lot of interviews, we do customer desire mapping, we scrape all the review sites. We do a lot of those kind of things before we even look at any keyword research tool, because I think that's the way you have to go. Of course, we do a lot of work analyzing the data and the keyword research tools, but you get so many ideas, topic ideas and keyword research that you wouldn't find elsewhere, that you wouldn't find on those tools and that you wouldn't find in your competitors' websites if you talk to people.
Jessica wrote a blog post, how to get your family and friends to promote your business. based on the pain point that she had. All of a sudden, it's ranking for, we're getting thousands of clicks on that. Ahrefs shows 0 volume.
It always, yeah.
It happens so often.
That's what, like in the case study that you were talking about, we found one keyword that I think Ahrefs said it had 0 to 10 or something like that, maybe 40. I don't know. It was very low. And then we ended up getting thousands of clicks for that one.
Yeah.
And the one that said that we would get 1,200 monthly searches, we were getting about 11 clicks.
Yeah, that happens. That's what happens all the time to me. And I think that the Ahrefs and SEMrush, God bless them, they're great tools and everything, but people need to realize that those are proxy measurements. They're not real numbers, right? You want to know your real numbers? Log into Google Search Console, go on pages, sort by keyword, and then look at sort. Even better if you want to, like a power tip over here, install the Search Analytics for Sheets add-on on Google Sheets, right? That'll sync your Google Search Console. It'll export all of your data to Sheets, and then you can sort there, and it's so much more convenient to do there. And then you'll see really how many impressions you're getting for certain keywords that your pages are ranking for. So for me, that's, now that I already have a significant amount of traffic on Growth and Organic, how I do keyword ideation is I'll just go on Search Console and I'll find keywords that have a couple of thousand impressions, but are ranking on positions 20 to 50, for example, that are relevant and have buying and have some sort of high level intent. And then I'll create content pages for those. And add them as spokes to the hub pages.
This is a really good way to find keywords that you're never going to find on Ahrefs.
And it's true data there. It's real data.
And if you put a lot of, all of those keywords are going to come up as 0 search volume. Do you also go in and organize it based on high impressions, low clicks, and see what you can optimize from there?
Yeah, I do the high impressions, low clicks, but usually it's always 0 clicks for me because I'm looking at like pages 2 to 5, or even 2 to 10. If I see, for example, I have like 2,000 impressions on position 88, that literally means that people were so into that keyword that they went to page 8 and 2,000 people went to page 8. That's what that means, literally.
And they couldn't find anything.
And they couldn't, So imagine if a page literally existed for them. So it's a really good tool, Google Search Console. I think it's the most underrated SEO tool ever.
What other ways are you growing GrowthMentor through SEO? I guess if you're a one-man SEO team.
Yeah, I'm trying to leverage user-generated content a lot whenever I can. I do interviews sometimes with mentors, and then I'll transcribe them on Otter.ai and I'll put them as guest posts for them because some people don't have time to write a guest post, but they can jump on a call with you for 10 minutes and you can transcribe that. And if they're a subject matter expert, that's going to be 100 times better content than even a $200 blog post that you're going to pay for. And it takes 10 minutes of your time. So you don't have to spend money on writers. You can just interview people. And it's actually like really cool because you can use the content as well, the video for the podcast if you want. Like you could transcribe this right now, or I could transcribe it and turn it into 4 blog posts. Yeah.
So do you re-optimize them to make them somehow keyword optimized, or what are you doing with the transcript? Because you do have to edit it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you have to edit it. So I hired a contractor editor, and that's all she does. And I'll tell her what keywords I want to go for, and she'll optimize it. So that generally costs me around $150 per post.
That's really good. Yeah. And are those performing pretty well?
Yeah, they're performing quite well.
I know that you also have a crazy link building scheme that I'd like to framework that I would love to talk about. You talked about it to me briefly before. Just what did you call it? The triangulation.
The triangle swap, I guess. I don't remember what I branded it, but basically this only works if you have 2 sites, right? So both of them have to have, actually one of them has to have really good DR, right? So you're like, hey, I'll give you a link on this site, on site A, if you give me a link on site B. So that way it's a triangle. There's no bilateral links. They're all one directional.
So you have one blog that you consistently write for, and they let you put links.
Yes. They don't care. They don't care. So I have this one blog. I'm not going to say a name, but I can put links there, whatever. And it has like a DR of 65. So I can then do an outreach and be like, yo, whatever, insert here outreach, but it has to be like good, personalized. And obviously if it's based on relationships, even better. You're like, yo, I have this, I'll give you a free backlink. Tell me which blog post you want to do it. And usually they'll reply back, because you don't make the ask, don't make that creepy. If you give me this, be like, hey,
Yeah.
you want a free backlink? Here's this, or you can even find the exact post that you think you would make really relevant. Be like, hey, do you want a backlink on this page? And they're going to reply. And oh my God, thank you, yes. And then after you give them the backlink, and there's like, what can I do to help you? Be like, can you give me a backlink on this other site? And and they're like, yeah, sure, of course, anything I can do. And then you build a relationship, and who knows what might happen later.
So how often are you writing on this other blog post, on this other blog with the DA of 65?
How often? Quite, not once a month or something.
Once a month.
Yeah.
And how many links do you generate from that?
Probably around 40, 50 a month or something. I mean, it's a lot.
That's really good.
Yeah. Like DR 50s to 80s only.
And so what's your process of staying on top of all of that?
I created a system and proceduralized it, and I hired an intern to do it. He graduated from an intern to part-time, and now he's responsible for this, and I have him on a performance basis. So I'll pay X dollars for every link that he scores using this method, and he just tallies up how many links he's done, and at the end of the month, I just pay the invoice. Simple as that.
But you're writing the blog posts?
No, I have content writers to write the blog posts.
Okay. I mean,
you mean the blog post on the other site or on GrowthMentor?
On the triangular.
Yeah, no, we have content writers there for that one.
Okay.
This is like a really easy way to make backlinks, and I just don't know why people aren't doing this, but I can't believe I just said
yeah,
this
you would think so
online. But whatever, that's the whole nature of the business. You share your best performing stuff until everyone does it and it blows up.
Yeah. I'm gonna try it. We're all spread really thin right now at Flying Cat, and it's also, I tried to put some of the client fulfillment team onto the marketing team, and I was like, oh, we're gonna be a client of ourselves, but we just have too much going on for our other clients. I was like, okay, pause that. Somehow I'm gonna have to figure out how to do the marketing by myself. So this is quite an interesting conversation for me to try to find, not shortcuts, just it's more easier ways to get a lot done with a smaller amount of work.
This process that I'm doing is a lot easier because I have a lot of like connections now, people that I can consider friends. So the more good relationships you've built up, the more networked you are, this just becomes a lot easier networking, right? So just building like genuine relationships, I think, is the number one like hack to get links or get really anything.
Do you have something on GrowthMentor actually for finding link building opportunities?
Oh yes, we do. On the community section, there's a filter open to link exchanges. So you could just click that filter and find like all the mentees who are open to doing link exchanges.
Okay.
And I got 40 links from the community just doing that. I got my guy to reach out to everyone that's offering that, and you know.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and take advantage of that as well.
Do it.
This has been a really fun chat. Do you have anything to add? Any key takeaways about bootstrapping and SEO strategies when you're a very small team?
SEO strategy. For me, SEO in 2022, as we're coming into, just a function of your publishing velocity. A lot of stuff. Make sure that it's better than what's on positions 1 to 4. If you can't make it better, don't even try and make it better, please. Do it good, do a lot of it. Don't stress too much about the backlinks. It'll come, but just write a lot of stuff. I definitely think that publishing velocity is the most basic but underrated sort of function of success in SEO. There's a lot of people that are like super focused on like the 10x, like the backlink thing, right? The skyscraper method. You can spend 2 months creating a piece of content, and what if it doesn't work? Because I'm very big on like the MVP content style. So just you create a piece of content, You monitor that on Google Search Console for 2-3 weeks. You see what's going on. If you can tell on Search Console if something's working or not, and then you can always update and refresh it afterwards. But get it indexed.
Get it
out. Increase the
out.
volume of indexable content.
Yeah. At the end of the day, if there are two websites, each ranking for, or each 5,000 pages, but all the pages as well are ranking for more keywords, it's also the strategic of trying to rank for as many keywords as possible. That's always going to win. But one great way to rank for a lot of different keywords is to publish a lot of pages, because all of the pages are going to be ideally ranking for a lot of variations of a keyword.
Yeah. And then when you have all that data in Google Search Console, it'll help you. It's like a loop, because it helps you get better ideation for new content.
Yeah. Great. So what's the best place for people to connect with you if they want to talk to you more?
I'm on LinkedIn, so that's the best place.
Cool. And if anybody's curious about GrowthMentor, go give it a try. I highly recommend it. Thanks, Foti. This has been a lot of fun. And for whoever's watching or listening, if you enjoyed it, please do give it a share, leave a comment, and let me know that you watched it all the way until here. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Take care.